Okay, welcome to Life Coaching Classes and Videos by Universal Recovery 360. I am your host, Pernell Basin, and I believe I've told you the story about my prison time. I believe I've told you the story about my addiction time. I believe I've told you about my story growing up in Brooklyn. So now I'm going to tell you about my story and the illness that I turned out to be blessed with and not cursed with. Right? So I grew up a thief, a little petty thief, pickpocket, stores, the corner store, nothing big, right? But I was a kleptomaniac. I had to do it. And I got in a lot of trouble with my family, so my mother moved me around a lot. She moved me to North Carolina with my best friend at the time. His parents, his family, had family down there. The only reason I really didn't stay down there is because the bathrooms were outhouses, and it just wasn't like friendship anymore. It was like me staying at somebody's house. And the person I thought was my friend was now my authority. So I went back home. Then she sent me to stay with my father. I stayed down there for a little bit twice. But he was married at that time, and me and his wife didn't get along. I was a real klepto there, right? Because Virginia was a little bit different. They were a little bit more free with security and stuff like that compared to New York. So I didn't get in a lot of trouble, but I did get in trouble down there too. And ended up back in New York. So when I turned 17, my mother signed me out of school and into the military. I was actually glad because it seemed like now, right, I had something that I could turn into a career, right? Something I could do forever. Something my father did. He retired 27 years. So, I thought like it was in me, right? And it was perfect, right? 3 weeks into my basic training, I got pulled out by the doctors. They said they don't know how it didn't get caught before I got into basic training. But since they caught it now, they had to do something about it. I was 3 weeks in, and they told me I had something called sickle cell. At the time, I didn't know what it was. I mean, you heard about it, but I didn't know what it was. So the sickle cell, they said by the time I was 21, I would be of no use to anybody. That's why they couldn't keep me. Now, they discharged me. I went to the Army. I tried to get in the Army. Then I got what was called a PPR, permanent physical rejection. Doctors told me I wouldn't live past 21. So they sent me home. So I got home, tried out. Then I started going to sickle cell doctors to see what sickle cell really was. But back then, they didn't really know what it was. And so I turned out to be a guinea pig in a sense, where no matter where I went, everybody wanted to test for this, they wanted to test for that, they wanted to test for this, they wanted to test for that. Like I just got poked and prodded so much that my veins literally collapsed. That's why I have a port, right? Because they can't go into my veins anymore. This thing goes all the way to my heart. And that's how they get blood when they need to test now, because if you try to use my veins, they'll collapse just like that. Anyway, back to 21. So I didn't plan for anything anymore, right? I didn't live for anything anymore. I just wanted to enjoy my life, like what I felt I had left, right? So then I turned 21. And I really thought this was it, right? I didn't know what symptoms were. I didn't know what anything was, but I continued to work. I started working on the weekends at a club called the Latin Quarters. And we were doing security there. I was working with a friend whose uncle owned the business. And he hired me and my homeboy to work with them at the door, at the gates in the back where the artists perform at and things like that. So we made a little $50 a night, 2 nights a week, So I had a regular job and I had that. Right. Then they started busting people in the club with drugs and confiscating them. Then they started taking what they confiscated home and experimenting with it. Well, they were all downstairs with the crack. I was upstairs smoking weed because I didn't want to smoke crack. Then they fired me because I wouldn't indulge with them. And I was like, okay, because, that's just not something I'm going to let somebody force me to do because we a crew. Don't mean shit, You're talking a whole nother level with that shit. Okay, so about 3 weeks later, they came back and they were like, yo, you ain't got to hang out with us after work, but you do have to give us $10 for gas and we'll call it even. And that was like me sharing my money with them because that's what it was all about. When they ran out of money, I still have money because they weren't just smoking what they confiscated anymore. They were spending their own money. So they were getting $10 from me for so-called gas, to go back and forth. And, after a while, I couldn't stay upstairs anymore. I had to stay downstairs with them. And my intellect kept saying, these motherfuckers wasting their money. But now, because I'm giving them $5, like they're wasting my money. And so, genius, remember? Want to show them how to do it right, but I never indulged, right? But the more I sat there, the more I got around them, and the more I seen it, what genius thought was wasting drugs. The more I wanted to help them enjoy their shit better so they don't waste all their money and walk around angry, being pissed off all the time, right? So I ended up taking some, right? And we went to the movies after work the next day. And me and the young guy that I was with that worked with them went to the movies, and I showed him what I had, and we rolled it up in some weed, and it was the best feeling I've had. When I tell you my whole body was happy, it wasn't just this. Like literally everything about me was just happy. It felt so good that halfway through the joint, I put it out to re-roll it to make it longer so it would last longer, and I fucked it all up, which played a part into me wanting to try it again. So you know the rest. You know the rest. But back to the sickle cell, right? I've had doctors tell me when I tried to stop drugs because I didn't have insurance and things like that at the time, because after you trying to get your life back from drugs, right, you really don't have a place to stay. So, I was staying in a housing apartment that the treatment center got me up in Sugar Hill, 142nd and Broadway, literally right there. And I was right back in the thick of things, right? Trying not to use, trying to stay in recovery. And the doctor told me, the only time you come see us is when you stop using drugs, right? She said, you might as well just keep using them because it's what's keeping you alive. Now, first I had a doctor tell me, you're not going to live past 21. Then I have this doctor telling me I might as well smoke crack because every time I try to stop smoking crack, my sickle cell comes back so hard, right, that I end up in the hospital for 30 days. So she told me Metropolitan Hospital, 94th, 96th Street, Manhattan. I walk through the park and I'm right there from where I was at. You take the bus down or walk down to 96, go through the park, right there. But anyway, that's what she told me. I walked out of there thinking I had a legitimate reason for smoking. Like, I literally had to tell myself there is no way a fucking officer who catches you buying crack is gonna let you go because you tell him your doctor said to smoke crack. No fucking way. But I thought about it. I thought about using it as an excuse to continue to smoke. Right? Alright, so back to the sickle cell. So after that, right, I got sick again. I ended up in the hospital for 30 days, and the doctor told me I should be happy, right? Most people don't live past 31. You're 32 years old. Be happy. No, you're 32. I was going on 33, but I was 32 years old. He told me, be satisfied. What do you want? You want some pain meds? And bam. Next thing I know, I'm getting so much methadone and so much oxycodone that, and I'm not taking the shit, of course. I'm a person who thinks his life is not worth living, right? I'm a person who weighs very little because of sickle cell and weighs even less because of drugs, right? And so, I'm selling them, right, to pay my rent, right? Because there's no government subsidies in North Carolina, not for men. They can give you food stamps, but they ain't giving you no money. If you're a man, you ain't getting no money, right? So they were giving me like 765 10 milligram methadones, 300 5 milligram oxycodones, and 100, what do you call that? The muscle relaxer. I forget what you call it. Anyway, so I was selling them. And that's how I ended up in prison. Now, when I was in prison, the doctors, right, what I didn't know is that they give you what was called adequate treatment in the hospital. Now, adequate literally means as long as you're breathing, you should be all right. That's what adequate means, which should tell you what they think about a person with an illness, right? So they had me in the medical ward, right? And they were giving me pain meds, right? And I was selling them. So one day the officers came to me and told me, your mother passed away. That night, my 7th cranial nerve swelled up. And I developed something called Bell's palsy, but because I was in prison with the adequate treatment, they thought it was a toothache. Now this whole side of my face was just felt like it was just dry, like you got the numb needle in the like you at the dentist's office, and they just super pumped mines like to the point where it'll last for 5 days. My whole face was dead, right, because of the swelling in the 7th cranial nerve. What I found out later was that it could also happen in the 3rd cranial nerve over here, but there's the 3rd nerve and the 7th nerve, my lucky numbers, right? So it was 7th cranial nerve swelled up, right? So I can't open this eye any wider than this. It does that on its own when I hold my head down, right? But if I hold my head up, right, you can see my eyebrows, right? You can see, right? So you can tell, right? One is lower than the other, right? Now, what I was told is if they give you, I forget what it is, it'll come to me. If they give it to you, within the first 24 hours, right, it'll go away. The seventh cranial nerve will shrink. But they didn't figure it out for 2 weeks. So by the time they gave me the medication that I needed, I forget what you call it, but when I remember, I'll tell you. By the time they gave it to me, it was too late, right? So I have other parts of my brain. This won't open. My top lip don't move, right? No matter how high I go, you'll never see those unless I really put my lip back. But other than that, I'll be talking forever and you'll never know they're there because this doesn't move, right? This nostril's fine, but it stays clogged up. This eye won't move at all. And then sometimes what happens is it kicks in, right? And when it kicks in, right, it doesn't feel like it's dead anymore. But what it does is it pulls from this side. So it's almost like both sides are out of my control. So I had to learn how to function with that. Right? I had to learn how to make these things look normal. Sickle cell, losing weight, gaining weight. I could go to sleep and wake up 7 pounds lighter, right? And then in 2 days, I can gain 4 pounds, right? Right. So I had to learn how to manage those things, right? And still look normal doing it, right? So I wear these caps a lot, right? Because they really do cover a certain amount of my face. I know the pressure from the caps are stopping my hair from growing, which is starting to make it look like I'm balding right in here, but it's just like not growing because I've been wearing them for so long. But I wear them for a reason, right? My ear rings constantly. I had to learn how to manage dealing with that without killing myself. Tinnitus. And so after 58 years or 40 something years of poking, prodding, crises. One time, I had a stroke. I was awake. Whole half of my body shut down. And the officers, when I went to the emergency room, told me if I don't get off the floor, they're going to arrest me. I couldn't feel half my body. Crises used to keep me in the hospital for 30 days at a time. Right? But when I started understanding, that's why I tell you it's a blessing, right? I don't catch colds. If I do, the next day it's gone. The only thing I will catch is pneumonia. I've had it 7 to 9 times. The first time I had it, I was 2 months old, I was told. The second time, I was 9 months old, I was told, right? But the rest I remember, right? I remember what they felt like. I thank God that stroke, I didn't pass out. Because they say if you pass out, the body will really shut down. And when you wake up, you won't be able to use half of your body, the part of your body you didn't feel. And I literally tell you, I had never felt the pain like that. Right down the middle. Never in my entire life. So I learned some things about pain, suffering, how my body works, how the sickle cell works, how my body responds to the sickle cell, and I've learned to adjust, right? But it also made me a better person when I started seeking knowledge of self, because knowledge of self is about understanding this as well as this. So since I was already genius, remember, the adaptation of putting the two together and making them one, right? Bringing forth the third eye, right? They have to unite. Now, I know a lot of times people don't believe that, but they can unite without you. This angry, this understands the emotion, is ready to fight or do something because it has developed an instinct to what this was thinking, and so they're ready together. Right? I had to learn how to do that for the good, not just in defense or when I got mad. Right? So I learned a lot of things about knowledge of self. So when I tell people stories, right? I try to make sure that I don't get caught up in what things appear to be, right? And I always tell y'all, if you waiting on the 100% lighting, the $2,000 system, the books behind me and all that, what you see is what you get, right? I'll do my videos driving. I'll do my videos wherever I'm at, however I am, because it's not about what I look like or where I'm at. It's about what I'm saying, and I think that's very important. There's a lot of things that people see when they look at you, right? I had to learn how to make sure people understood that I would not respond to what you say, right? Because you don't know who I am. You don't know why I am the way I am. None of that's your business, right? But if you see what you want to see, keep it to yourself, right? Because you're wrong, right? And you're hurting people because they're taking what you say and they're going with the visual you have because they haven't met me. See, if a person ever met me, it don't matter what you say. They know me, right? I can tell you a condition right now that would shock you, and yet, here I am. So I'm only going to say this like once, right? It's not about what you see, right? But I promise you, I will never addict to anything again a day in my life, right? I make the decisions. I say yes or no. I do what's best for me, period, right? I do what's best for me, period. I make all the sacrifices necessary. Anything I ever told you, I will do myself. I wouldn't tell you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And I tell you all the same thing. If nobody will hire you, do it yourself, right? Start somewhere, right? Prepare yourself, and don't let the way shit going make you give in, right? Keep putting one foot in front of the other, and I promise you, you will always move forward. That is a fact, right? I love you guys. I gotta go. Of course, as you are 360, you, my brother, my sister, are 360 degrees. You are full circle. You just have to know it and learn how to read it, see it, smell it, touch it, taste it, and hear it. When you do that and you get all that stuff together, you will become one. You will. I know a lot of people want to be Christ-like, but I'm going to just give you a heads up, right? Realistically, Christ knew what it looked like, where he came from. He knew where he was going when he left. None of that was secret to him, right? So it's hard to be Christ-like in this world because all that stuff is a secret to you. Everything he came from, he knew. And he had to find ways of telling you without telling you. So he made everything into a parable where you could come up with your own conclusion, right? Because he couldn't tell you directly. You have to figure things out for yourself. That's what I learned, right? But I will promise you, being Christ-like is very hard for a human being because he knew where he came from. According to Scripture, he knew what he was going back to, right? He had already experienced it. He had lived it forever, right? Forever. Today, yesterday, and forever, right? So when he came in the flesh, he was aware of where he was going and everything that was happening. So it's hard for a human being to have that in them. It is, right? All right. I love you guys. Peace.